Ladies and gentlemen, another we're just getting rid of the intro. That's, again, we already talked about that, but I've just decided to make it permanent, and it's not that awesome. It's not as awesome as the old Rub Dumpster intro, which hopefully some of you actually don't remember. I don't want people knowing any of that kind of thing. I am not drinking any actual booze today because I took some kratom. Which the first episode of this, the one, the version with me and Bill. This is hop water, by the way.
I was like, what the fuck is that? Crispy.
Oh, hop water?
What does it say on there? Crispy, crunchy.
It's crispy,
tiny,
crunchy. Citrusy. Yeah. Okay, so hop water somehow has 0 calories, 0 booze, 0 fat, sodium. It has literally nothing in it except for lots of vitamin C. But, it's like made from hops, kind of. So it's like a very, 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 very light beer. Like if you pour it into a glass, it kind of gets a foamy head. So this really feels like you're drinking a beer, kind of. But there is fucking nothing going on in it. And
so it's just seltzer water?
No, it's not seltzer. It's carbonated like beer is. Like, take a drink of it. It'll be like drinking a weird beer.
It'll be like having your foot fall asleep, except flavor form. Guaranteed.
Maybe. There are ones that are lime that taste a little bit more.
Oh, exactly that. Yep,
no,
called it.
But I mean, like, I drink these and not seltzers because the experience is totally different, so it might be imaginary, I guess. But anyway, it actually
does... You want the taste of your foot falling asleep.
No.
Drink that.
That's what fucking, like, Trulies and things are, like... Anyway, but it also has stuff in it. It has ashwagandha and L-theanine and other things. And I will say that it actually... So... For me, it's like real drugs or booze or nothing most of the time. Like people who are like, all you gotta do, man, is you take a bunch of vitamin B and then mix that with a little bit of like some other weird groceries or something, and it's blast off. You're just totally in a different... I'm like, no, it doesn't do anything.
Who the fuck says that?
People feel that supplements like
fuck you up. Like, I mean, I guess
yeah, like a little. But... okay, let me back that up. I don't mean fuck me up for any of those things that I said. I actually mean does something about my anxiety. Like, it takes real alcohol or like real Percocets and fucking whatever, to just make it actually go away.
To get you checked out is what you're trying to say. Supplements just...
Yeah. And it's like never really going to take the edge off of it. Now, my anxiety's been doing pretty good ever since... I started taking Adderall for my ADHD, and I only take it like during the day and at work. Like I don't take it on the weekends, and that's good because here's something that I learned since Adderall, and also since that first episode that was about kratom and stuff, is that Adderall plus kratom at the same time equals hearing voices, and I'm not joking. Like actual like. Auditory hallucinations where I was just like, it's like opening a door that has like a bunch of skeletons and you're just like, okay, so we're not doing this again. That's not a thing we do. Right, but I was going to say that ashwagandha actually mellows me out for a legal kind of just thing you can get at the weird aisle of vitamins and shit in Cub. It's weirdly effective. It actually kind of like 2 of these and even if I'm like dead sober or whatever, I'm kind of like, I'm feeling kind of mellow. Like, it actually kind of does something. So it's like this fake beery thing that I can drink when I'm not going to be drinking on any given day. And I'm taking kratom because I'm not drinking, because mixing that with booze is awful too. Mostly on your stomach, but I've heard that it's atrocious for your liver. Like, you should never do that. Like, it's like taking Tylenol and liquor. Like, don't ever do that. That's going to give you the liver of a 80-year-old drunk. Who isn't in as good a shape as Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And you don't really want that. So, but then also, like, I take Adderall during the week. So it's like Sunday is the Lord's Day, and I take the closest thing I can get to an actual opioid on that day. And it actually makes me feel pretty good. I have a specific brand that I won't mention because no one cares. B, also, like, my work has an in-house brand, and if I was ever going to be sponsored by anyone, maybe it would just be the various drugs that we sell. Like, brought to you by Delta 9 Gummies. It's like, tell your grandma that, you don't have time to drive to Denver for her, but maybe you can still help while she's on her deathbed. Get her some of those sweet, sweet edibles. Except for, I think if you're a dying grandma, you can fully get fucking medical stuff from here.
Get your own damn...
Well, there goes that sales pitch. Sorry, Grandma. Oh yeah, you may also notice if you watch these rather than just listen. And there's not going to be any video, so you won't. If anyone who does only listen, and I know there's more and more people. Like our average has gone like way up. But since we do put on like a video and scream at it sometimes, it makes it more interesting to go to YouTube. But not today. Don't have anything like that set up. As a matter of fact, I updated OBS so we could do that, but it caused it to change every fucking other thing that it does to work all differently, which was the original reason that the intro wasn't happening. But the outro is still there, and I really like that. I was going to talk about a few things today. Oh, yeah, and I didn't even write this down. Have you heard the thing about how, like, Justin Roiland is, like, fully gross? The guy from Rick and Morty.
I know who that is. Yes.
And
not surprised. I'm sorry, but you remember fucking John K. from...
Yeah, it is actually... That's a good point. John K., who made Ren and Stimpy, so made a beloved, irreverent, gross-out cartoon that took the world by storm. Also was, like... a weird guy that used the fact that he was a big cartoon man to kind of, like, lure teenage girls to him and stuff.
He had a 15-year-old girlfriend.
Yeah, like,
so.
The people who I'm glad are there to, like, put things in perspective. Because, honestly, I was like, I wonder if this is going to be just like, okay, whatever. Like, or if it's really going to be bad. So, like, I looked... And they showed some of the texts that he had been sending people, and I was like, this is actually upsetting. Yeah. Like, he sent some weird stuff to people. And yeah, by the way, that's so dumb. Because, like, you can, as some kind of weird celebrity, if you just get everyone who's all uppity's nose out of joint, and, they're like, well, that's a little old to be dating an 18-year-old. It's like, is it illegal? That's not the point. I think it is. You can fight your way out of that. This was actually like a crime, and that no one feels good about. And yeah, like rightfully, it's like, okay, well, I guess that's the last we're going to see of him.
I could give a shit.
Yeah, I felt Rick and Morty had its high, high watermark.
I really loved season 1 and 2,
yes.
And I think they should have just left it at that, but...
okay. Yeah, if only that. I feel that there's episodes of that now, which would, to 2015 me, sound insane, because I was, like, rewatching Rick and Morty, like, all the time, because I was like, wow, this is great. I was, like, living in some house that was just terrifying, but for some reason we had cable, so it just came on Adult Swim down in the living room, and it was just like, what is this? And then my roommate was like, oh, this show's great, and I went and found it on the internet, and was like, oh, here we go. Yeah, I guess we're pouring one out on the curb for Rick and Morty, which really died before this, and it's not coming back. So yeah, it's really like nothing.
Well, died for us. I mean, it did get very popular after season 3 was like its peak popularity.
Yeah, it's zenith, as they say. Yeah, but I don't care about people who aren't us. That's the main.
Me either.
It's like, I really don't. So, if you're listening to this podcast and experiencing the objective reality that we exist inside of, Rick and Morty was dead long before this because I forgot to care about it or watch it anymore because it just wasn't that. Kind of like Archer. There's episodes of Archer I haven't seen because it just... Yeah. 5 was all right. Or maybe 5 was good, but I didn't like that they stopped the format. I appreciate when people switch up formats for things. It's clever, but like only when it really works. And I really wanted the season 5 thing to be kind of okay, that was wild, and then we just have them. But yeah, because they dropped the ISIS name because ISIS is a real thing, and it's like, but that's dumb. Don't capitulate. That's how the terrorists win.
They knew that going in anyway.
I don't know. I think that the first season of that show was that's when we were still worried about the Taliban or the Taliban was Afghanistan. What was the actual thing? Oh, this is gonna bother me.
It's like 9/11 shit.
Yeah, but that wasn't ISIS, but it also wasn't like the Taliban was just kind of the bad guys that run Afghanistan and are in charge again now or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't ISIS though. It had a different name.
I don't know.
Well, here, look it up, would you? I actually want to figure this out. It's going to actually drive me insane.
What am I looking at?
Who did 9/11? I mean, Bush, but who did they say? Because this is one of those fun things, too, because some of the people listening or watching this definitely...
Al-Qaeda!
Al-Qaeda! They were screaming that in their car or at work or whatever. It's like, it's Al-Qaeda, John. Yeah, see, but we forgot about Al-Qaeda, much like Dre. And the thing is I think the first, and probably when they were writing it, because cartoons take forever, I don't think ISIS was, I think it was Al-Qaeda still.
Maybe.
Like, ISIS started cropping up like, we're all so old now, but I mean, semi-recently, which means like 11 years ago. But that was still, Archer's on, like, season 9 or 10, and they didn't even come out consistently every year. And so it's like the first one was easily before that. So they had to change it.
You know what?
Never had time to buy like a hat.
I was actually thinking about this, Rick and Morty, and fucking guy we're just talking about.
Justin Roiland?
No.
Archer?
Archer.
Well, it's a show, not a guy.
Well, I know. But just how, well, like with any show, after you get to a certain season, it's like you gotta call it quits or it just gets too stupid. Because there's really nothing else to write about. And I'm noticing now that, in my opinion, I mean, it's probably not a very, popular one, but the adult cartoons that are, like, offensive and whatever are kind of just getting old, and I'm like, I don't want to see that anymore. It's just kind of like, meh.
It's, okay, yeah, here's the thing with that. It's literally, I pointed this out once, where it's like, the Cleveland show, for example, like, came out and it was kind of like, the offshoot of Family Guy.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny, but it's kind of meh. But I was really watching it and being like, if this had came out in 1995, my brain would have exploded. It would have been everybody's favorite thing in the world. It would have been getting protested by the PMRC and Tipper Gore and the conservatives, and everyone would all have their noses on a joint. Jello Biafra would say in its defense. And he would, because he'd be around and still going on talk shows like he was in the 90s. So, like, it is just that fact that would have been this one that we're kind of like, yeah, it's all right, haha. That would have been a million times funnier if it had come out earlier. Therefore, things that, would have flown in 2008, we're like, oh, man, like, this is so crazy. Yeah, we're just used to it now. There have to be kids that are like, oh, it's just the normal trope that a Dungeons and Dragons fantasy cartoon has everyone yelling fuck in it and stuff. That's part of the fantasy world. Like, no, it's that was funny, see, because it's not a normal thing that would be in those things. And
now there's just almost too many or whatever.
Yeah, it just becomes
kind of like, and then the ones that have been around forever have been around forever, and it's just kind of like,
yeah,
let's do something different. I'd rather.
I don't know what you even do either.
I'd
it's
rather
like, who cares?
see start making live action movies of Archer. I would love to see one live action movie, not a show, just because that's too much.
No, yeah, they just do
a movie.
Once.
That would be a good one.
It's too bad that Jessica, what's her name?
Her name is Jessica, but I can't remember her last name.
Like, there's a few of the people that could have been their characters on the show.
But Catherine O'Hara would slay as
Mallory. Yeah, Catherine O'Hara could have taken over. That would have been fine. Literally, the chick that plays Cheryl is like an actual in-person type actress as well, and is like attractive and looks enough like her where you could kind of make her like, yeah, that's Cheryl. That's fine. I think actually the lady that does Pam's voice could kind of pass too. I think. Like, she's close. You might have to put, like, on some weight to be Pam or whatever. But they could also just do another thing where she's on cocaine again. But she kind of looks like her a little. But yeah, H. John Benjamin is just, his voice is so irreplaceable, and he's the opposite of Archer.
Okay, Aisha Tyler should definitely just stay as Lana.
Yeah, no, like I was saying, it's like almost half of the cast is like, oh yeah, like, that could be that person.
Oh, Jessica Walter was Mallory.
Jessica Walter, yeah.
But,
yeah, she could be Pam there, Amber Nash. Like, it'd be fine. Like, you could almost do it except for Archer. That's the funniest thing. He's just so dumpy and old and fat. He just looks like a fucking, like, touring stand-up that never quite made it, like, even though he's, like, very rich.
Ryan Reynolds could do it.
You're right. Ryan Reynolds could do it. Because he's also good at being, like, kind of a conceited... It's just
and he's got the name, and he's... Yeah, he can do it.
The problem is just the voice is so iconic.
He could do it pretty good, I think.
I believe in Ryan Reynolds as an actor. Like, certainly I do. I don't just... he's easy on the eyes, but he's much more than that. And... Actually, much more than that. That Deadpool thing was, like, all him, and those movies, like, made more money than all the other comic book movies, like... Even, like, the fucking Avengers shit, like, Deadpool's first weekend blew that away. I think some of the, like, Endgame and stuff, I think some of them, like, eventually made more, but, like, Deadpool was like, look, this was fucking rated R. It was completely insane. It was one person's, like, pet project that was just like, either we're gonna do it exactly like this, or we're not doing it at all. They're like, okay, yeah, and it made, like, a gazillion dollars.
So much flack from... comic book.
Well, yeah, because that's
like the dirty comic.
Well, I was talking to someone who was like, "It's weird that movie was like that," and I was like, "What?" And I talked to him, and it's like, "Oh, you've never read the comics?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, they're exactly like that," and that's why people were like, "How are you even going to make this into a movie?" And that's the thing. Like, it's a fun movie if you.
I think it would be. I don't know. Making anything into a movie isn't simple, but that would be a superhero movie that I feel was a little bit more simpler and wouldn't be, like, stupid.
There's a way, yeah, I don't know, if you really, like, we take it for granted now because we've seen it and it exists, but if you were, like, reading the comics, which I've read sporadically over the centuries, like, you would kind of go, like, I don't know, like, how would this technically even work? Like, he's, like, yelling at himself in the next panel over, and I mean, it's like... But you're like, oh, the way they did it in the movie was the perfect way to do it. But I don't think it was a complete foregone conclusion that that's how they would have done it. Like, the movie being exactly how it is was the right way to go. But before it existed, you'd kind of be a little bit like, how exactly would they sort of handle the way that it's, like, serious but not serious? And, I don't know. Or maybe it was really easy.
So did we ever get to the point of why we brought up, I don't know, creepy guy from...
why we brought him
Stimpy,
up?
But not... Ren and Stimpy and...
we just brought him up because that's, like, a thing in the news.
Right.
That was, like, a thing that was going on. Oh, yeah, and I was...
I don't know if you had another point you wanted to make, and I just derailed.
Yeah, it's sort of, because I did want to talk about, I was having again, like, some of these are now that I'm, like, around people a little more often, like, I have conversations that, like, make me think of things, which is nice. But, I was talking, we were having the big discussion about, like, can you listen to or watch anything where it's like the person is a piece of shit, and it's just like, how can you... It's not even like, I get if, whoever you imaginary person are, like, oh, I just can't listen to Michael Jackson anymore because, like, I know, like, what he did or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, if that's the way you look at it, then yeah, then don't. But it gets weird when it's like, and I don't see how you could either. I'm like, okay, not everyone. I think, like, Rick and Morty's different, but it's also, I mean, yeah, if it was still my favorite thing in the world, maybe I'd be going the other way on it and just being like, whatever, I'm still going to watch it. But luckily, I don't care. But I did have a slew of points about that, and this was before this came up. This was just randomly about whichever fucking musician it was that day that was, like, going under the bus.
Oh, geez,
and, like, one, I'm going to borrow a line from Bill Hicks. It's like, if you can't handle separating the art from the artist, I want you to take all those records and all that music that helped you get through your awkward phase in high school and helped you realize who you are and filled your days with joy. Take all those and break them and set them on fire and throw them in the trash. Because probably, just because we didn't hear about it, maybe they're already dead at the buzzer before anything weird came out. But I guarantee, because all those people are musicians and they're creative, and on top of that, they were famous. Because you're not that cool. You're not listening to anything made by anybody that doesn't drive a Maserati. Like, you're not that into fucking weird, obscure. I'm talking to whoever's listening. You're just like, at least a lot of those, especially when you were a kid, when you were told how to feel about things by marketing companies. You didn't just find Fall Out Boy on your own in a record store. Get the fuck out of here. So all that shit.
And I'm sorry, but the guys from Fall Out Boy definitely probably
for sure
were in underage girls.
Yeah, of course they fucking were. And like you that's who listens, and the people, it's like, I am aware of this. People will treat you like a god at like a pretty low level. And so actually being famous has to be totally fucking insane. And I didn't finish the Bill Hicks thing, but it doesn't really matter. You all know. Go listen to that Tool song. Real fucking high on drugs, but I was gonna say raping a lot of people. Or I don't know. I didn't know quite how to make it into a different goof, but you get the idea. And if you don't know who Bill Hicks is, have fun on YouTube. That'll be good. He's very dead and probably terrible.
Yeah, probably equally as terrible.
I think actually he wrote something in his own book about some romance with someone who was far too young. He was just a fat, gross nerd that got famous for being a weird comedian. But yeah, there is like, yeah, one of the reasons all the pop punk bands and stuff too is because all their fans were like in high school and just like worshiping them and being obsessed with them. And it's a slow burn because when you start to get fans, right? Like you start a band or something like that. Let's just say a band and not anything else. When you start doing that, no one will care. You know, the people who are at the bar already will be annoyed that you're being too loud while they were trying to play bingo or like whatever, you know, those early days, whatever those are like. Or that you're not doing covers because they don't get that that's like not what this is, you know, whatever like that. When you start having people that show up every time and will like, I want a CD and a shirt and I want to know what you're doing online later and whatever, but there's still only like 25 of those people, every single one of them is going to be an absolute psychopath. You just cannot do something like, how popular whatever art or thing that you're putting out into the world is, however popular that gets, it has to be humongously huge before you start getting the first sane people showing up to it and watching it online or whatever. Like people who are just like married with a nice house, but they're kind of young. They have nice jeans and like a sweater, and they just come to your show and they're like, yeah, man, it's just like vibing up. But when they show up, it's like because there's like 1,500 other people there at that show. That's why. When there is 11, all of them have basically just slipped the noose this weekend, one more time from going to a fucking lockdown somewhere to go and scrounge up together enough catalytic converters to get $5 to go see your show at some dump. Like, I don't know why it is. And listening to people like Doug Stanhope and talk, it's like, yeah, like, I don't know what it's like to have repeat business as a comedian. I do understand the band thing, you know, whatever. But according to a lot of people, yeah, it's kind of like that too. The first 3 people that start following you around are just like barely being allowed to live, not in some sort of institution. Like, that's just how it is. And so, like, when your band starts getting, I'm just remembering the good old days. And when your band starts getting somewhere, you just kind of get used to that. You're like, okay, everybody here is fucking nuts. And by the way, they're going to be real ugly too. And it's not going to take, but here's the problem.
Oh no.
Here is the problem. This is a math equation. I'm probably going to, put this one out as a clip because you start with a few ugly, crazy people, right? And then if you're real lucky, you just end up with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, people, just moms bring their kids, like, whatever. Like, you just end up with just everybody in the world fucking loves, Carlos Santana. Or boy, that's not an up-to-date. Who cares? What, the Maroon 5? It doesn't matter. But the same people that go to the Maroon 5 were going to see White Zombie when they were really huge when they were around. Like, that's just what happens. It's a little different looking, especially up towards the front, but you still get those same people that are like, yeah, I saw the Maroon 5, gonna go see Rob Zombie tomorrow. They just like music, but they're totally normal. We're bringing the kids. But here's the thing. Here's the problem. You end there, and it's all kinds of people, and lots of them are sane, lots of them are perfectly attractive and everything, and here's where all the scary, ugly psychos are that might kill you if you let them, too close to your van. Somewhere here, somewhere towards the end of the first third of this journey, maybe even the first quarter, you're not getting any sane people, but now some of them are starting to be hot. That is the fucking problem. And you don't realize that because you're just like all these like weird computer nerds that pick their nose and their bellies hanging out of their shirt, and you're just like, hey, thanks for coming, guys. Yeah, man, fucking hey. Whatever, that like failed their test to be able to drive a forklift, but they're just there to support you. But then it's like, cute girls start showing up whose, like, clothes fit them and stuff. And you're like, oh, cool. Like, regular people are starting to show up now. You are wrong. It just looks a little like that. So you're like, all right, yeah. And then they'll say something, and you're like, well, you know, we're both adults here. Like, let's just say even, you know, like, we're both adults here. And, like, this idea is not totally gross and psychotic because it's like, you know, attractive people. I think we're getting out of the weeds here with the crazies. No. And then you get used to, it kind of sinks in, you get used to that reality, and by that point, like, if you get any further than that, your baseline normal of what's okay and acceptable to do with people that you met 3 minutes ago starts leading to bad judgment and problems. And, like, so if you get as big as Fall Out Boy, that middle segment is really where there's just, like, there's no way. Especially, by the way, too, people are always like, well, you know, why do people still think it's okay to listen to Frank Sinatra? It's like, he's fucking dead. Like, and yeah, I'm sure he was a piece of shit, but it's like, he was probably, like, hitting women back when, like, the news would come on and tell you were supposed to. Like, it was like the 50s or the 40s when he was first getting famous. Yeah. He was just like, you know, when you were comparing people, you're like, well, the real Hitler is around right now. It's like Frank Sinatra just slapped a broad. To be honest, she was getting a little lippy. So it's like, he wasn't doing anything. And, you know, on top of that, like, he fought tooth and nail to, when places didn't want to allow Sammy Davis Jr. to perform, he would just really be like, hey, you motherfuckers, he's a good man, he's a good musician. I don't understand why you're being like, wow, look how progressive he is. The problem is just too much time has gone by. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, it wasn't real kind to the ladies. He was married, like 19 times. Like, that's gonna happen. So I'm not gonna be like, well, I won't be giving his grandchildren my 3 cents off of a Spotify thing, right, because that man was a piece of shit back when you were supposed to be one. And that's an extreme funny example, and that's the example that we were kind of talking about. But it's like, the other thing about all of those big productions and stuff is that if you're like, well, Michael Jackson is a piece of shit, and I'm like, well, what if I'm just a fan of Quincy Jones? Because there's a lot of people, and I think they're probably right, that are like, that record had way more to do with it. Michael Jackson was a good singer and a good, you know, he knew how to put stuff together and whatever, but the production, you'll notice the difference between his first things and then when Quincy Jones started producing them. It's like, well, these are like a million times better.
Well, that's the same with, like, shows and stuff. There are so many other people that's exactly do a hell of a lot of work.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm going to completely boycott this show because of one asshole thing. No, there were so many other good people on there that didn't know this shit was happening.
Yeah, I'd probably be pretty upset about it if they did. Yeah. And all that. And it's like, you know, and again, I think I've already yelled about this, and I commented on some unrelated thing on Reddit about it, and it became one of my hugest, like, thousands of upvotes and all these arguments under it, comments. But just that, like, so much of our, like, society's policy online is just being made by children. And I've yelled about it on here before. It's like, it's either just like a racist little Eric Cartman or a precious little theater kid, just unfiltered, and then people read it and you're like, well, this other grown-up like me certainly seems to, so it just becomes validate, because you don't know. You're like, you don't know where it's coming from. You're like, oh, this is what everybody believes now. All right, I guess I'll join in. Like, well, I wouldn't do that because I think those are all kids who don't know how anything works yet. But, you know, they get the most mad if you're listening to a thing. But, you know, they're also dumb and they don't know that, like, okay, let's say Taylor Swift, like, no, let's say that she's just spotless and clean, right? Like, never did anything, never, like, you know, hired someone in a different country to, like, you know, beat people up for blood diamonds or something because he bought stock in, like, a thing. You know, the little things you'll never hear about. It's like, well, you know, female performers never, like, molest anybody. And it's like, yeah, you want to take a real hard look at where their money goes, though, because that'll, and I know you care about that because you're like, oh, this brand of shoe doesn't come from, I'm like, okay. But, like, and then I've said this before, too, where no matter how clean you think it is, you're like, I don't buy things from Amazon. It's like, well, yes, but that, you know, that nice couple of ladies in flannels that, like, have the organic farm or whatever like that, you only buy things from them and they're good people and they don't do anything bad. And the minute they need something to, it's like, oh, we need this farm implement or whatever, and they buy it off Amazon, that means the dollars that you sent in their direction, some of it still went directly up Satan's ass. Like, there's just... So, like, what is it? Like, it's like the Ving Rhames in Pulp Fiction, like, how many were fights together? Like, how many levels between you and Satan's asshole and money are you comfortable with? 2? 3? Like, what is it? Is there a number? It's like, nope, after the 5th time it changes hands, it doesn't matter where this money goes.
If anybody has seen The Good Place, that's pretty much what that whole show is all about. And I love that show.
I definitely need to see that, and I slept on that one. But my point is that people don't understand that things are so mixed together and complicated that, like, you can't get that morally high and mighty about shit. Not really. Not without going, I have this exact thing where, like, no, see, if the person singing the song is an asshole, then, like, you can't ever listen to it again. If one of the 50 people that put them there is a complete asshole, since we don't really have to look at them or know anything about it, even though they might have, written the entire album, or perhaps are the money people that are, get them promoted on things, and they're the only reason you ever fucking heard of Taylor Swift, are all just running some Epstein Island somewhere. It's like, well, I mean, it's not like that's her fault. Yeah, okay. Is it? Is it not? Does she not know? Does she know? Is it really? Are you just going to sit there, like, doing, like, Scooby-Doo mystery work, being like, well, she could have heard about it then, and she didn't say anything about it, but I think that someone was, like, hiding it from her. And it's like, can I still listen to it? Or will it upset me to listen to it? Oh, no, it's okay again. We found out she didn't actually know. Oh, it turns out it was all her idea. And it's like, I can't sit there, like, and that's the problem. When you stick to just simple, big statement platitudes to make, everyone think that you do the right thing, this is easy. Because it's hogwash and it's just made up, and most people's moral outrage is performative! And sorry, I like to yell. And so, it's just like, yeah, of course you're not going to pick it apart to that level, which you would have to do if this is real morality we're talking about here. And it just completely falls apart and becomes impossible to keep up with. You kind of end up with the choice of, like, do you listen to nothing ever again? Or do you just listen to it and not get all caught up in this shit? You listen to a fucking Kanye song, especially if you, like, lost your virginity to it in a car or something. Like, it's not going to stop reminding you of that just because it reminds you of Hitler also. Like, I mean, it's going to muddle the waters a little. That's a little bit of a boner killer, at least hopefully.
Well, he disappeared, though. Like, he was MIA for a while.
They killed Hitler. No, he killed himself. Oh, Kanye. Yeah. He's alive, probably.
Yeah.
But that was the other...
No, there was a thing where, like, Hitler escaped through, like, a secret portal to Antarctica.
A portal to Antarctica?
Yeah, seriously.
It's
a real thing. I swear to God, I've heard that.
I've only heard that they kind of snuck him out with everyone else and he was in Argentina or something. Not that he went through
Antarctica.
Guar built a portal and he went to Antarctica. And he's frozen right now, just waiting for the ice caps to melt because all of his fans are pushing for that.
QAnon shit.
Oh, like, I'm sure. Wait, what did you say? QAnon?
QAnon?
QAnon. It's QAnon.
QAnon.
Okay. QAnon. My Aunt QAnon's coming over. And your aunt might be real into QAnon. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's about the end of that.
It's aunt or aunt. Whatever.
That's why. Your Aunt QAnon. That's why that was the joke instead of your Aunt QAnon. Yes. You subliminally backed me up on that one. That's good.
Glad to be of service.
Yeah, that helps. So yeah, I think that's like the end of that tirade, but it was just the timing a little bit of that, the Justin Roiland thing happened, and it's like, I guess with him it would be difficult because he does like all the voices on the show and you just have to think about it. But it's like, I'm not going to stop going back and watching old episodes of Ren and Stimpy. 13-year-old me is not responsible for the actions of an old pervert.
Yeah,
that's victim blaming. And you know who the victim is here? Me, because if everyone does all this fucked up shit, now I can't watch what I want to watch on streaming services. Why am I the one being punished for this?
And you know who's great? The voice actor who does everything. Fucking... Well, I can't think of his name.
Like, one example of something he does.
Ren and Stimpy.
Billy West.
Billy West. And does, like, the voices for Futurama. Like, he's amazing.
Yeah, we really need to appreciate Billy West's finest work, which is Ren and Stimpy. Well, and Futurama. And everything.
I was gonna say, like, he's an amazing voice actor. And you're like, well, because that guy, like... Well, I mean, yeah, it's gross, but...
Yeah.
But Billy West is amazing. So far. I mean, maybe we'll figure out something after he's dead.
I'm sure we will. People are just disgusting, and people who are like rich and famous are like always really disgusting. It's like we don't even know. Maybe Keanu Reeves, the whole thing's just like a cover. I mean, how would you know? Maybe Brendan Fraser is history's greatest monster. Like, I don't think so. I think there are people like that are genuinely decent people, and there's definitely, like, I'm sure we're never going to find out anything fucked up about Dave Grohl.
Did you see the thing? It's not like all over the place, but maybe it is, where Jamie Lee Curtis has this like huge giant picture of this like naked child in this like plastic bathtub, like just looks like it's like dead, staring up. Yeah.
What? Like,
yeah,
what is that like?
I'm gonna show
supposed to be? Because you know how it's like.
No, she's backpedaled on Twitter and whatnot, saying, "Oh, I didn't mean for it to upset anyone. It's just a mother taking a picture of her daughter." And is
it that though? Like, is that her daughter?
Fucking, it's not Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter.
Well, then what is it? Like, what does she have? Oh, see, this would be a perfect time if we were a little bit quicker to use the browser thing.
I know.
Wait, no, we probably shouldn't even put that on the screen. I guess that's a good point. I was about to, like, I could probably look it up in there real quick, but nah.
There's an easier way to do this. I just have to go.
Jamie Lee Curtis child porno picture.
Yeah, no,
just see what that does. I mean, people are weird with their naked kids. I will say that. And
it's not her kid, and it's
no.
It's just a piece of art.
I know.
It's
but
fucking weird.
Okay, this is a good reason to bring this story up. Hold on.
There it is.
What in the hell? That's just like I don't care.
It's like a dead alien to me.
Yeah, I don't care that it's like a naked, and the knee is blocking everything. But I mean, you know, it just looks upsetting. Like it's like
the kid looks dead. It looks like the kid, like when Elliot got sick.
Yeah,
with ET, I
don't love any of that. And like
sorry,
the thing is,
but it's in her office, and she just had it up.
See, that's weird.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I mean,
rich people are goddamn weird. And I've said it many times on this podcast before.
You could say at least your backpedaling could be better and be like, no, it's from the series by this hugely famous photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something.
But
like,
it's not. It's just some creepy.
Or like, come on, be like, yeah, it's a power move. Like I just do it to throw people off when they're having meetings with me. I sit in front of it so I don't have to look at it. You know, like. I mean, I guess that there's a purity in the awful things that I do, in that they are for those reasons. It's like hardly anything gives me a boner anymore. So it's like, obviously that kind of thing doesn't, but terrifying people, you know, and weirding them out and making them upset kind of does give me a boner. So in a roundabout way, like it's just like, and by that I mean like a giggle boner, not like a real one, but like it's...
That's a giggle boner? What the fuck is that?
That's the kind of thing John Wayne Gacy would get. Come
you
and
are
see my giggle boner.
I'm not listening to you anymore.
That's fair. So, yeah, no, it's weird. No, but I wanted to bring this up. And it's that people, when I was like a kid, you know, somewhere between when I first came online and, you know, my early teen years or something like that, I noticed there was, for one, people always have all these naked pictures of their kids. Like, it's always just a thing that they do. And, like, especially the moms, they just, I don't know. And then, but some of them would take it this level, and me and my friend Brett were at our friend Joe Norgard's house, and his aunt had made handmade, like homemade Cabbage Patch Kids, and the clothes came off, and they had, like, they were little kids, and she bothered to sew little wieners and balls on them.
That's
and
amazing!
And it's funny, but, like, and then Joe's mom was all like, oh, I think it's cute. So it's like, yeah, but that's not your kid. That's like a Cabbage Patch Kid, but that's cute. I'm just saying that, like, Jamie Lee Curtis's thing could have just been this bizarre extrapolation of that weird thinking where it's like, no, that's not a picture of like your youngest son back when he was like looking at his own wiener in the bathtub and you're like, it's so cute. That's just an effigy of something, and everyone just thinks it's adorable because it just reminds them of little kid wieners, which if you say that out loud is super fucked up. But in the context of that story, it's like, oh, I guess it's just how like moms and people are, like, especially back then.
But no, the way that when you read her tweet explaining it you can see exactly why she thought it was like fine, but in their own fucked up way of thinking. Because if you just look at that looks like a corpse. Looks like a corpse in a bathtub. Why the hell would you
that's
have
really
it on your wall?
The worst part of it is that it looks dead and creepy. And
I mean, but think about it. I've got that picture that I found in fucking Seattle of those people giving open heart surgery or whatever, and it was framed, and that was just the weirdest thing. If I had that hanging on my wall, some people might think I was psychotic.
Yeah. I think it's just that right now in our society, and I mean, this is fair, but we've really been cracking down on preverts. And so it's anything that has to do, you could have, see, that's the thing. I would, if I was some rich, famous person, and it's why do you have John Wayne Gacy nailed to a cross in this beautiful oil painting, hanging by, so because I don't know, it's fucking weird. I had someone made it and I bought it for cheap, because no one wanted it and whatever, but it's that's messed up and terrifying, but it's not a kid. So it's okay, yeah, I guess exactly. But that is the thing, is people are oh, it's cute and innocent. I think the problem is that it's supposed, I can see
she tried to pull that
picture cute, looks like it could have been playful, but the picture is made wrong.
Well, she said
it's
the child was in there smiling, but the child isn't smiling, no. It looks dead.
It does look like a picture of a kid that died of rabies or something, where they're kind of frozen in this thing. It's if it was smiling, that would just be really awful.
Or just floating in a vat of acid.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm getting gross.
Something. Well, no, the acid will clean the bones. It's actually less gross. It's a very sterile environment.
Oh, jeez.
Whatever, but yeah, it is just when people aren't there to tell you no ever. I don't know, the Justin Roiland thing, it seemed pretty overt, and it seemed pretty late in the game, as far as the time that we live in. You're just sending text messages that say what you said, which even I was oh yeah, that's a little wild.
Figure it out. What's wrong with you? How fucked in the head? What kind of drugs are you on?
Well, yeah, it's I mean, I get if you're going to be a creep and say that in person, I mean, then it's it's not a great idea still. And someone's going to tell on you, but then they're just telling on you. It's not and also look. That is just, how could you be that out of touch? I understand you have, but I guess it did go from, nothing to the biggest show in the fucking world. And I guess that is that, just cocaine-powered, Purple Prince
so you think
limousine rocket ride.
Have no consequences to your actions.
Yeah, you're just
that's fine.
I'm beyond this. And then also, again, that's that slow burn I talked about. How you go from the journey between a few crazy, ugly people and a bunch of normal people, plenty of whom are very attractive, is hot people before the crazy ends. And you're just well, yeah, this is fine. It's all their idea. It's well, of course it is. They're nuts. And they're obsessed with you. And there is sort of a thing where it's at first, it's just more oh, you're just sort of going along with it. It's well, it's not it was my idea, but it's obviously some people get to this point where it's yeah, this is clearly your idea. The things you're sending are now you're doing this. You weren't just hey, come on, let go of my belt. I got to get in the car and leave. Whatever. No. Now you're saying weird stuff to people with a purpose. And that is where it's how do you think that's never going to go wrong? Even if, yeah, you have money and things, but it just, how our fucking society works at this point, and it's certainly going to take that fame away from you. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe it's just yeah, well, I already have $300 million, and no one can cancel my royalties from syndication, and no one's gonna stop they're gonna maybe stop making new ones, but it's going to be somewhere, and a lot of little incels are gonna or would be too young to even have heard about this as it still is available as the years go by. But remember this show? This is really funny. It's oh yeah, and it's I guess one of the guys in it was a Cree. I don't remember. And I don't just fucking who cares anyway? Fucking women, what? And they're gonna watch Rick and Morty. That's just what's gonna happen. So it's he's yeah, well, I'm just rich forever, and I shot my shot with a bunch of teenage girls because I guess. Maybe, if he actually thought about it that hard, maybe that's what he thought. I'm guessing, though, he didn't.
He's been doing it for a real long time, because there is somebody that, there is somebody that I am friends with on Facebook that had, this person was, I think they said they were 17, and this was before he was, super popular or whatever.
Right.
They were corresponding, I don't know, on some somewhere something and he was asking them for nudes.
Yeah.
So.
I wonder, like, how long ago that was. Because I think some of the stuff I saw was, like, fucking recent.
Probably, I would guess, like, I don't know how old this person is. Like, 8 years ago? 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
they're not like my friend. It's just I know them online, so I can't.
Right, no, it doesn't matter. I was just, like, trying to figure out, like, because even that long ago, I mean, that's still getting to be where, like, he was, like, a famous guy. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but people do develop weird patterns of things. And, like, you know, it's like some people like that are completely, like, that's just always been their creepy thing. And they kind of know it. And they're just trying to get away with it for as long as they can or whatever. And there are also the other end of the spectrum who still end up doing weird, fucked up stuff. And I would say, like, Michael Jackson's probably, like, the king of this, you know, like...
Not only the king of pop.
Yeah, the king of this exact thing, which is the unloved, like, suddenly people are kind of willing to give you whatever you want, so you're like... He's such an extreme case, he's hard to use as an example. There's someone who's, like, for sure never got laid in high school, suddenly everyone in the world wants to, and you're like, well, what class do you take to get you ready for that? That is there's like the odds of you being like some sort of weird sex symbol to a bunch of people are low. Like literally no matter who you are, the odds of anything you're doing working out enough to where that ends up being a thing. And especially if you weren't already, like I'm sure the guy from Maroon 5 was getting it in high school. It's like I'm sure he had abs and he played football and shit. You know what I mean? So it's like none of that was new. You know, he just like was like, yep, and then now girls like me still. Now that I'm famous, just more now. But then there are those people who are like, yeah, I'm kind of this schlubby guy that, you know, kind of just had no charisma, but boy, I had a song in my heart and a dream in my soul, and it all worked out. And suddenly everyone's interested. And that, so again, like that's also even less likely than having your plans work out at all is the fact of going that 180. So yeah, who gets you ready for that? But I'm not, well, I kind of feel like Justin Roiland wasn't that. I figure he might have just always been a creep. For some reason, that feels right. As much as I enjoy the humor in it, if you kind of, like in the Rick and Morty, like, you can't write that kind of thing. Like Rick Sanchez's main, just that nihilistic, egomaniacal character without having a little of that in you. You know, where just people are just these worthless idiots.
Is Dan Harmon a creep? Because I'm pretty sure he wrote it all.
Yeah, I think he actually is too. But just no one cares or something. Because someone made a joke. There was a meme I saw, and they took it from that Simpsons episode where Lisa was trying to stop the luau because she didn't want it to eat meat anymore. Mm-hmm. And she runs and goes.
It was a good episode.
It was. It's like, it's just still a little dirty. It's still good when they're chasing the flying pig. But when she goes to like knock the pig thing over or whatever, Marge goes like, Bart, no! And he's like standing next to her like, what? Sorry, force of habit. Lisa, no! And someone did it with her like, Dan Harmon, no! He's like, what? Force of habit, sorry. Justin Roiland, no!
That's
like,
pretty good.
It was a good shitpost meme thing. It was very funny. Because someone else, I mean, that format's been used where it was like, you know, Germany, no, like what? Like, sorry, Russia, no,
yeah.
It's like a force of habit. Like, what are you expanding into other countries in Europe? Like, yeah, again. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to really give him the benefit of the doubt because I just sense that in there somewhere is that I can do whatever I want and use people. Well, he still was a creative person behind the whole, like, thing. And, like, I know that Dan Harmon wrote it, but he wrote it with him. He's not just a voice actor. Like, he certainly is, like, very much behind a lot of it, too. And that is also to say it's not like I'm suddenly going to not think it's funny anymore. I don't think it's funny anymore because I've watched it too many times, and now I'm just kind of like, okay, I know all the jokes. I get it. And also, Rick and Morty might have been the last thing that we were talking about earlier, where it's like nothing is like, okay, nothing can just like throw you anymore because like, everyone's already thrown you and it's already gotten huge. Like, you know, they already made a few Deadpool movies. Like, they made it's like Rick and Morty, I think, might have been the last show where I was like, oh my God, like this is some like mean, irreverent, crazy humor. I don't think there's been anything since then that's hit me like that. I think that's the ceiling. You're like, until we just get to a thing where it's like a guy in like a Nickelodeon shirt fucking a pumpkin or something, and there's like no dialogue. Like what is happening? Like it just gets so like absurd and obscene and terrifying. You're like, okay, like, and then that wouldn't be great to watch, I don't think. So it's like there is like this bell curve where it actually becomes impossible to push any harder. I think that's why, music got so lame in the early 2000s, because everything was getting more and more shocking, and I was like, man, I can't wait to see what the next generation does, and they upset me by turning into a bunch of wussies. I'm like, they still got me.
So
they still got me. I was like, I won't be offended by whatever it is when I get old. I'm going to be like, yes, the kids are all right. And they're like, everyone gets old, John. Like, you're still going to watch. And I'm like, how? What could possibly upset and irritate me as an adult? And it's like just a bunch of whiny wieners, like, singing this drab music. I'm like, oh. And then people, like, holding their hands in the air with their eyes closed because, like, so much of it is tied to, like, the Christian rock world. I'm like, oh, my God, this is so upsetting to me. I am a very angry old man about this. Like, I am offended. I mean, I'm not going to be out there protesting because I'm not as dumb as they are, because I just would make them more popular. You never do that. But we need to talk about the debt ceiling. I think that the thumbnail for this is probably going to have something to do with Rick and Morty.
I think you could cancel the debt ceiling for now, because we need to get to Dear Asshole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the debt ceiling thing is always going to be relevant, because I was prefacing this earlier. I was just having a tirade with someone in real life about how we can handle the debt ceiling by never paying it, which is just like, what are you going to do? And that's kind of funny. But maybe it's just not even that much in my lane anymore. Like, I mean, not anymore than it ever was. It's like, I'll yell about sort of political things sometimes, but it's like, that's so boring. Like, I could say funny things about it, and like turning the U.S. military into a bunch of like loan sharks wearing suits, and it's like, we're not signing up to protect your freedom. We're just going to be honest with you. We don't want to pay our bills, so we're going to go around wrecking up other countries and telling them that it's like, oh, you want your money, huh? Moose, Rocco, get the drone. It's like, maybe that's more of a stand-up bit for someday. I don't know. Could be.
Could work.
It's hard to keep this lit for some reason. All right. Dear Asshole. A segment brought to you by my parents. And not just because they made an asshole and you're watching one. But because they gave me this book for some reason that, again, you'll have to go back, because I've just talked ad nauseum, about how it's like, I don't get it. Like, it's not irony either. It's like, it feels in no way like the people who wrote this are making fun of the kind of person that would complain about this kind of thing. I mean, maybe that was their plan and they just fucked up. They're like, oh, it just comes off as like, you really think this? Like their idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like,
yeah, that library book one was dumb. And like, this one, I feel like, has, and I've made it a point to not really, like, read these. But anyway, so the book is a book of tear-out letters to passive-aggressively leave to, like, this many people who apparently wrong you on a daily basis. My God. I think if everyone in the world seems like an asshole but you're the asshole. Like, that's what it feels like to be an asshole, is you're like, why am I surrounded by assholes? It's like, oh, Dark Helmet was a big asshole. Like, that's just, that Spaceballs reference really sums this all up.
Yes, it does.
Also, I'll give a little credit, I was ripping off a thing that Trent Reznor said in some interview where he was like, every big rock festival, one of the acts, there's always going to be an asshole. And if you find yourself going like, I don't think we have one on this one, the asshole is you. But that's probably true in that world, and it's funny, but I like what I stole from him better, like I do occasionally with my music career. Waka waka. I like my version of what you were trying to do, even though it's not as good. But I'm the one that done it. But yeah, if you just think that everyone is out to get you all the time, it's like, I think that Target lied and they really do have Tickle Me Elmos in the back, and I don't want to say anything, but they probably have a quota, and it's like, since I'm white, they were like, well, we need to sell a few of them to other people, and it's like, but that's not fair. This thing I just imagined, they should be giving it to me. Actually, I wonder. You ever wonder if that's what people's thing is in retail?
If they actually think that,
yeah,
probably. Like
if they're like so like because. People are crazy, right? And like dumb and mean and whatever. But I brought this up in the podcast before. I hate it when folks kind of go, there's no point trying to look into it. They're just crazy. Like, there's no point trying to figure out why the Nazis did what they did. I'm like, I think you might maybe want to know. Like, in case it starts happening again. Like, yeah, I think it's like, it's just bad. There's no sense in, I don't know. But, yeah, so it's like, well, why are Karens Karening, as they would say? And I'm like, no, it's going to be broken, stupid logic based off of a bunch of stuff that isn't true. But there's going to be a logic to it, right? There's going to be something. And I don't know why. It was like years and years and years out of retail by this time, but I was just thinking about it. It's like, do you think that they believe that, because it's like, okay, Target doesn't know who you are, you're right? Like, Target didn't go to high school with them and you didn't steal their boyfriend, so it's not like a vendetta they have. So it can't be that, right? And the only two things, please don't do this right now, you stupid piece of shit. The only two things that I could think of is that they think that they're too lazy to go look, but then sometimes they'll go like, all right, I will go check extra hard, and then they come back, and they're like, we don't have any Tickle Me Elmos, ma'am, and then she has a meltdown. So, well, they walked all the way back there and looked around, so obviously it wouldn't have been any extra work just to grab the fucking thing. I mean, if you're believing that, it's like they didn't want to do the one last step they needed to do. That's a stretch even for them. I guarantee that it's some weird idea that there's this affirmative action thing going on where they're not allowed to. They have to make sure that some black kids definitely get their Tickle Me Elmo or whatever. Like, because doesn't that feel like someone would believe?
Some dumbass racist.
Yeah, like, and it's like, I need to know that for some reason. Like that's like, because it's. I don't ever want to get caught with my pants down being like, why are you so mean to this person that acts like this? It's like, well, not only are they annoying and terrible and mean, I think they're probably also racist. Like, let's throw the book at them if we're going to. This book, perhaps. So anyway, this one could be funny. Let's find out. This is going to be a journey, reading this whole entire thing eventually, of trying to figure out if they were attempting to be ironic and failed, or if they're just bad people that have a sense of humor that I don't know how it got made into a book. Yeah, but it's so privileged and odd that you'd almost have to be going, I'm writing this to make fun of the kind of person that would do this. Yeah. I don't know. But we'll find out maybe. Maybe it'll start coming clear as we read. So this one is, Dear Asshole Trying to Fix Me Up. And this isn't written by an old car or a house. This is written by a person, so what they mean is put them on a date with someone to try to find them someone to love. Or at least to touch them in places. Whatever it is. This book was written by two women, so probably love. So, what pathetic loser are you trying to pawn off on me now? A sweet-talking ex-con with an overbite? Your unemployed cousin who still lives in their mother's basement? Thanks, but I'll pass. Last week's candlelit dinner with the schizophrenic was the last straw. While I'll always treasure the time I spent arguing with personality number 47...
Well, that's fucking ableist.
Big Red, a schoolgirl in Ireland with a speech impediment... What? I've had enough! Let me tell you, nothing quite says romance like discussing the potato famine over surf and turf. Now, what were you going to talk about with this deranged person who has a speech impediment, apparently, from another country? You know, how much you hate their overbite? I don't know what that would be, but anyway. Sorry, but I'm done hanging out with your parade of trolls and misfits. By the way, that's a sentence I'll never say. Because I will never be done hanging out with your parade of trolls and misfits. I don't care how great their personality is. Now, was that a selling point if they were someone with schizophrenia? I think you're all over the road here. Everyone knows that's just matchmaker speak for they're a total freak, which is probably a rewrite for fat or something. Because it's like, they have a good personality, which means they're a freak. No, it means they're ugly. But you didn't want to say that, even though you were just judging people by their appearances 5 sentences ago. Very ableist, actually. Love ya. P.S. If they're that amazing, go out with them yourself. Ooh. You know, for someone who is so lonely that some friend of theirs has taken it upon themselves to fix them up. Now, here's the thing. Nobody ever tries to fix someone up until they've gotten into a bad place. No one ever goes, you know what? I'll just find you someone to fall in love with, okay? Jesus! Unless it's been a huge problem for years. That's just... what?
just thinking of someone in particular.
I'm sure. But you know what I mean? Like, they have to be, like, famously unlikable and sad and gross, but they're grandfathered into being your friend for fucking whatever reason, and you're just like, okay, maybe we can solve this for you. This person has apparently been set up with an entire parade of trolls and misfits, but nevertheless, you can't call it a parade if it's been, like, 2 tries. As a matter of fact, I think there are specific details by about 3 probably separate people mentioned in that. So let's just say that, yeah, it's like their 5th or 6th time of being fixed up and having that not work because the other person is just so miserable because they wanted to talk about an important part of their Irish heritage, the potato famine, while you're eating surf and turf. Not a cheap date either. All right, so like either you're balling out of control, or I don't know how it shakes out, or they took you somewhere real nice. They want to talk about potatoes while you eat lobster and steak, and you're just gonna be a fucking butt munch about it. That is so.
A sniveling butt munch.
A sniveling butt munch, like some of those fans you get early on when you start your band.
Right.
So, you know. I think that, like, okay, and again, we're only a few pages in. I think that was like the 4th one. I don't know yet if this is a ham-fisted attempt at ironically making fun of some, but I don't know. It's already looking a little grim.
It's pretty grim.
Because, well, yeah, there's ableist. There was a straight up racist thing in the first one.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not. I think there's a way to do it where you're trying to make fun of those who would do that.
Oh, that totally is. They're just not clever.
It's not this, though. And I don't even know if it's like... I think this is just unabashedly like, this is going to be funny. Don't you hate everyone? You know, like, that's the idea. Not like, let's make fun of people who complain too much and leave little notes for people and are just rotten pieces of shit. Like, let's make fun of that in this book because it's gone beyond the pale. Like, we're through the looking glass here, people. Like, there's no way to even think like that in a way that, to be like, I can't believe how mad I am at someone who's, like, fixed me up on a date. Like, I couldn't even joke about that because I don't know what it's like to have that problem. I know what it's like to have the problem when your crazy fans start multiplying into hot ones before they get sane. I get it. I could talk about that. I don't know what it's like to be fixed up with, like, weirdo after weirdo because I just can't seem to find anyone to love.
Find my own weirdo. It's not that hard.
They're all over the place. They're everywhere you turn around. They're going to talk to you. They're going to be there. And, like, so if you're incapable of just, like, forming your own bad, terrible, you know what I mean? So it's like the perspective here. It can't exist unless the author is kind of actually one of the people that the book is for, okay, in real life. And I think also that there's just too big of a divide for it to be like, yeah, they're just cluelessly doing that. I think it's actually, so far, the people that wrote Dear Asshole are assholes.
The Reverend John Wheeler Podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you, and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.